Okay, welcome councillors. Thank you all for coming out to this extraordinary meeting. Unfortunately, our numbers are a bit short as it was bank holiday this week, so quite a few of our members have taken the opportunity to go away for the week. But thank you to those of you who have managed to make it tonight. Can I remind you to switch your mobile phones to silent? There are members of the public and press attending the meeting virtually. Can I ask those who are attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption in the meeting? This meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the Council YouTube channel. To ensure those that are attending virtually can hear the proceedings and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you speak loudly and clearly. Please remember it is a formal meeting, therefore do not refer to councillors or officers by their first names. When addressing council, please stand if you are able to do so. There is no fire alarm planned, therefore upon hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building by your nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the top of the car park. Please be aware that contents displayed on your iPad or laptop may be seen by others or members of the public attending the meeting. Therefore, please close down screens which are displaying confidential information during public part of the meetings. So, move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence, please.
Okay, the apologies for absence from councillors Coombs, Davies, Dawson, Denton, C. Lever, P. Lever, Orange and Spear.
Councillor Youssef is put on there as well because his partner is very ill in hospital. So he's in hospital.
And the chair, just to advise you that councillors Rutty and Jones are attending virtually, so therefore not voting any decisions tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for attending virtually. Item 2, business brought forward by or with consent of the chair. To consider the following recommendation proposed by the Senior Solicitor and Monitoring Officer following an application for dispensation in relation to item 5 from councillors Bell, Beedman and Wilson, as Councillor Youssef and Lever are not here. But councillors Bell, Beedman and Wilson be granted a dispensation, such dispensation to be limited to solely allow them to take part in the deliberation and vote in item 5 of the extraordinary full council on the 27th of August 2025, despite having a prejudicial other registrable interest as county councillors on the basis that, in accordance with section 33(2)(c) of the Localism Act 2021, such dispensation is in the interest of persons living in the authority's area. Could I ask the county councillors to leave the room, please?
Bye, bye.
Bye.
This is for the vote.
Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Norman, and seconder, Councillor Hunt. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Could you ask them to come back in?
Are we allowed to have several vote against that, or is it just the other way round?
Okay, item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations that have not been made to corporate and community services, please? There's none.
No, I've received none, Chair.
Item 4, to agree the agenda between Part A and Part B. There is no Part B. However, I would like to suggest that we actually take item 5 first and then move on to item 6 first and then move on to item 5, due to we have time constraints of being in the building and we do need to discuss item 5 as well as item 6, item 6 as well as item 5. So can I have a proposal? Councillor Hunt, Councillor Norman second. All those in favour? Thank you. So we go straight on to item 6, the formation of joint planning committee and review of the political balance, which is pages 37 to 50 of your report.
Okay. As members will have seen from the report, the recommendation is that a joint planning committee be formed with Torridge District Council to deal with one particular application that has been submitted to both authorities, and that's for an large-scale solar installation which straddles the boundary between both authorities. The bulk of the land within the application site is within the North Devon area. But the legislation and the guidance from government suggests that in these circumstances, the applicant submits duplicate planning applications to both authorities. And given that, that presents a number of problems in how you actually deal with the application efficiently, and also how you take decisions on it as well. And so to guard against the situation where one planning committee, for instance, might approve it, one planning committee might refuse it, the suggestion is that we have a joint planning committee between the two authorities to determine that one particular application. You'll see from the report that it's suggested that the committee will be politically balanced, but we're not asking for that balance to be determined here today, and or for members to be appointed today. We'll bring another report back to the next full council to deal with political balance, because we've also had some changes with by-elections as well. And the report also refers to the fact that each council will appoint 9 councillors to sit on the joint committee, and those councillors will be drawn from their existing planning committees, and that's to ensure that we have the adequate amount of training for members, and also to delegate to the solicitor and monitoring officer, in consultation with the lead member for planning, and the chair of the planning committee, the power to agree the specific terms of reference for the committee. But you will see that the latest draft that's flowing between the two authorities is attached as Appendix A for members to look at. The other point to bear in mind is that, given the fact that the bulk of the land is within the North Devon area, it's suggested that the North Devon authority chair that committee. And the other point to bear in mind is that, or to note to members, is that this was presented to Torridge's full council back at the end of July, and they've approved it as well. So it's all about making sure that this application is dealt with efficiently and properly. And we've also had a discussion with the applicant to ensure that they're happy with this approach, and they are as well.
Councillor Bushell.
I'm happy to propose that we go with the chief exec's recommendations on this occasion.
Councillor Biederman.
Yeah, I was going to second the recommendation. Chair.
Any questions, Miss Councillor Howarth?
Chair, I was just wondering if it could stay on after that one planning application in case there are similar things coming up, so we don't go through this again.
We could do, but we'd have to go back through Torridge. So Torridge approval of this is just in relation to the one application. What we've said in the recommendation is that if, as sometimes happens, the application is withdrawn and a duplicate application comes in, a replacement application or an application to vary this permission, the joint committee can also deal with that. But if you're talking about a completely different site, then we would have to bring something back to members. I think it's probably fairly unusual to have an application of this scale which straddles the boundary of the two authorities. So it's not likely to happen that often in the future. But you don't know. I mean,
I was just thinking of future-proofing.
yeah. But with joint working in the future, you don't know whether we might end up going down this route. But at the moment, this is just in relation to this one application.
So have a mover and a seconder. So all those in favour? Any against? So no. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, members.
Okay, so we now move on to item 6, local government reorganisation report from our chief executive. Thank you.
And you okay if I sit down, Chair? Work buttons. Thank you very much. Try and work buttons. Okay, so members, this is brought to you today as an update on the current situation and the work that's being undertaken in relation to local government reorganisation. So I will go through the latest position, but just as a reminder, you've seen this slide before. This is the slide that shows the population levels for each district within Devon, and also for the two unitary authorities, Torridge and Plymouth. It's on this information that various models are being looked at. What's happened since the last time this came to full council, which I think was back in March. We have had updates through Stretching Resources, and we've had informal workshops and briefings since then, and also the parish forum. But I think the last time full council looked at this was back in March. What's happened since then is that the interim proposals have all been submitted, and your report, which is on your agenda, contains an appendix. And within that appendix, at paragraph 7, I've summarised the various interim proposals that have been submitted. So there was one submitted by Plymouth. There was one interim proposal with 6 options submitted by the county council. An interim proposal submitted by Plymouth, another one by Exeter, one submitted by Torbay with 3 options. Then you had the districts collaborating on the 145, which was submitted. And then you had an interim proposal submitted by North Devon, which was based on the resolution at the March committee, which was to support 145, but also look at Northern Devon model. So those were the interim proposals that were submitted back in March. Feedback was then received from MHCLG, and you've got a copy of that feedback on the agenda papers as well, Appendix 2. Which is fairly generic feedback that was provided to all of the authorities in Devon. So there's nothing specific about any particular proposal, but it does provide feedback generally on the different options that were put forward. The only thing really, work has been undertaken, which I'll outline in a minute, but the only other thing to note really, I guess, that's happened is that the very recently Exeter City Council have taken a report to their full council asking their members to take a decision on which option to start working on. So it's not their formal proposal or anything yet, but this is a map representing what they're looking at. They've got their own map on the website, which goes into a bit more detail with growth areas, etc. But they're looking at a proposal which contains Greater Exeter, which is the yellow blob, Greater Plymouth, which is the green blob, obviously, and then something to happen with the rest of Devon. You won't be able to see the population figures there, but they're looking at the Exeter proposal being 247,000 roughly, Plymouth being just short of 300,000, and then the rest of Devon 670,000 population. So that's what Exeter are looking at. Like I said, that's not their proposal. That will be submitted in November, but that's what they've asked members to their members to approve as something to work on. The recommendation that you guys made on the 19th of March, nice and wordy, snappy, but the gist of it is basically that you agreed that to support the 145 model, but also to start looking at a model that was more focused on Northern Devon, and that also recognised the split between rural and urban. That was the gist of the recommendation. So just in relation to the 145 model, just as a reminder, that's what everyone's looking at. So you've got Plymouth as the green. You've got then the 4, which is South Hams, West Devon, Teignbridge and Torbay, with a population of about 420. And then you've got the 5, which is Torridge, North Devon, Mid Devon, Exeter and East Devon, with a population of about 532. That may, as the 145 proposal moves forward, that may change in relation to the boundaries of Plymouth as to whether, you know, I think there's 5 or 6 parishes that are really closely related to Plymouth, so that may change, but that's something that will develop as the 145 moves forward.
Can I just ask what Plymouth have got? Because you mentioned the figures on the other 2.
300,000.
Now, under that model, hold on, I'll go back to the first slide. So Plymouth, 264.
Thank you.
Yeah.
300 with the 18 parishes they want.
Yeah, so they look with the 13 parishes, I think it is. Yeah, the 13 parishes that Plymouth are looking to take on board, that adds about another 40,000 to it, so which brings them up to about 300,000. So the work that has been happening on the 145 And as I said, this is a collaboration with the 7 districts and Torbay, Exeter obviously excluded. But we've got teams working on the various aspects of the criteria that government are looking for. So we've got a team working on service delivery, teams working on governance, and all the other aspects. And those teams are working together under a programme which will eventually be drawn together to develop the proposal itself. Consultants have been appointed to lead that process. And they're also looking at various options, appraising different options as well as part of that. We've got some assistance being provided to support the 145 on the financial modelling and also looking at service delivery, especially around some of the county services, adult services and children's services. And we have started an engagement process, which is nearly at an end now. It finishes at the end of this month, which I think across the county is looking at about 1,500 responses so far. So pretty good, and a good representative sample. And then just in relation to the Northern Devon options, and these maps were included on your agenda papers as well. I think it was Appendix 4. We've in particular been looking at 2 models. We haven't given them snappy names like 145 or anything like that, but you'll see from this one, there is the red blob, which would be West Devon, Torridge, North Devon and Mid Devon with a population of just over 306,000. And then you've got a southern unitary, which would be East Devon, Exeter, Teignbridge, Torbay and South Hams with a population of about 650,000. And then Plymouth again on its own or perhaps with extended boundaries. That's one of the options that members looked at originally. And the other model, Model 2, is that one, which is a 4 unitary model, again with Plymouth. And then the blue one being Torbay, South Hams, West Devon, 285,000. The mauve one being Teignbridge, Exeter and East Devon, 420,000. And North Devon, Torridge and Mid Devon being 250,000. So those are the 2 options that we've been looking at. And then just in relation to the work that's so far been taken. So collaboration is between North Devon and Torridge councils. So Mid Devon and West Devon councils were approached, but declined to take part in the work that's ongoing at the moment. So in terms of what we've been doing, we've appointed consultants to start developing a Northern Devon place story. And for those that have been to some of the workshops, you'll have seen a reference to a Torridge place story, which was developed to support their levelling up programme. We felt that it was worthwhile exercise to start preparing a Northern Devon place story, which sort of tells the story of the community of Northern Devon, and also starts to flesh out some of the economic opportunities in North Devon. It's a useful exercise both for local government reorganisation because it starts presenting that place picture and that community picture that we need to develop in your proposals, but it's also useful for things like attracting investment, raising the profile of Northern Devon with people like the Combined Authority, etc. So it's a useful exercise to undertake anyway, even without LGR, but I think it's a really important exercise in relation to LGR itself. And we've also appointed consultants to look at a high level assessment of the criteria that government have set down and to look at the options that I just went through, those 2 options in relation to those criteria and comparing it with the 145. And I just want to, that piece of work has only just come back to us. So I just want to go into a little bit more detail about that, if you like. But first of all, the government criteria, and again, in reference to the appendix that you've got on the papers, Appendix A, the criteria are set out in paragraph 4 there. So there's 6 criteria, but bear in mind that for each criteria, A, B, C, D, whatever it is, there's also, I don't know what the wording would be, but sub-criteria. I don't think that is a proper word. Mark, you will tell me that, I'm sure.
You've already had to go to a meeting, mate.
So there are subcategories within that criteria. So, for instance, you won't see in those 6 criteria anything that says about the 500,000 population level. That's because it's one of the subcategories. Similarly, it says in the subcategories that your plan should be based on the district boundaries rather than splitting boundaries, etc. So there's lots of other bits and pieces that they put in there. But in summary, you've got criteria 1 to 3, which are quantitative. And that's easy to sort of model and to compare. This is the sort of financial information, how sustainable financially an option coming forward might be, etc. And what the consultants have done, because we've had issues in relation to data sharing, which hopefully are now resolved. They haven't had access to the data bank yet that's being developed. And so what they've done is they've used the publicly available data sources, and they've chosen various metrics that they think relate specifically to those 3 criteria. And they've used those metrics to try and identify where there are imbalances across the different options. And then you've got criteria 4 to 6, which are more qualitative. So this is the stuff around place, around community, etc. So what the consultants did, they took input from various stakeholders, and they also looked at some of our documents and strategies that we've already got in place, like the economic strategy, the Torridge Place story, the bits and pieces that we put into our interim proposal, and also the cultural strategy. And what they did, they assessed whether they were high, medium, or low in relation to each option against that specific criteria 1 to 6. And they looked at the balance and consistency across those metrics. And I'll come on to the results in just a second, but it's fair to point out that in the comparison against the 145 model, which is the only model they compared against, the 145 model did score higher. But these were the results in relation to the 2 models that I showed you just now. So their view is, for instance, establishing a single tier of local government. One of the subcategories within that talks about not creating areas which have an undue advantage over other areas. So government are looking for a fairly balanced flow across the county, if you like. And they felt model 1, which was the one where you got the north-south split, created a bit of an imbalance because you've got a population of about 300, I think, in the north, and then 650 in the south, which is why they scored low, for instance, on that one. You'll see model 2, for instance, scores high on local needs, but then low on high quality services because there's issues there around homelessness, etc.
Explain model 1 and model 2. Which
Yeah.
arrangements are they?
So
Model 1's 451.
yeah, so that's model 2. And model 1 was that one. So model 1 is the one with the 4 in the Northern Devon option, and model 2 is the one with the 3.
And what's, sorry, Carefree. Where's the 1.5, 1.5,
I'll come on to that in just a second, if I may, because I'm conscious that I'm giving you limited information at the moment, and I'll explain why in just a second. So the conclusion that KPMG came to was that the North Devon option certainly has some merit, especially in relation to those qualitative criteria, the sort of place shaping, etc. And their view is that that's what would be expected because some of those models, or one of those models anyway, is more local, if you like. It's a smaller unit tree, and you're creating 4 unit trees. So having that smaller unit tree would, in their view, score higher than a single unit tree, for instance, because you've got more local service delivery, etc. But I've said that the results are limited. And that's because, like I said earlier, the data that they've used isn't the full suite of data. They've used public metrics or public data that is available. And they're comparing with a model, the 145 model, which, to be absolutely honest, is not yet developed. And that's why I'm not going into detail about the 145 model at this stage, because it isn't in a position where I could quite properly stand before you and say, this is what the model will look like. What the purpose of this work that KPMG have undertaken for us is to see whether there is scope within a Northern Devon option. If the modelling had come back and it was all reds, for instance, on both of those options, then I'd be sitting here before you and saying, look, you know, it's a dead duck. Let's not do it. But it obviously doesn't do that. It shows that there is some merit. But I don't think there's any usefulness in doing a direct comparison and going through the detail of the 145 model at this stage, because I'm not asking you to take a decision on which option to support. That will come before you in November, and it's only fair that the full option is put in front of you at that time, rather than you know, the detail of the work to date. And you've also got to remember that this is a competitive process. So going through in detail the 145 option at this stage would not be helpful, I don't think. So the results are very limited, but it does show that, you know, there is at least some merit in it. Just in relation to the timeline. So obviously the timeline started earlier than this with the initial letter from government and then the interim submissions, but we got final submissions going in on the 28th of November. And then the next couple of dates are a little bit vague at the moment, but government is talking about going out with a consultation about January, February, March time in the new year, which will be going out to the public, asking them their views on all of the options, not specifying one at that particular time. And then probably in around August time, I think the latest letter from government talked about hopefully a decision being made before the summer recess. They will take a decision as to which option is the preferred option for Devon. And obviously that very much depends on how many proposals come forward for the whole area. There's then a suggestion that probably the orders will be laid in January or February 27. And at that point, the moratorium will come into place. And the moratorium is a restriction on how existing councils in the area can deal with their property contracts, etc. The idea being that government wouldn't want authorities that are going to be replaced entering into onerous contractual arrangements, selling off the crown jewels, etc. in the period running up to the change. So it's likely that government will specify a certain level of dealings, if you like. So, you know, I don't know what level they put in place. There's a suggestion in the letters, but you won't be able to deal with land over and above a certain value, etc. And then in May 27 will be the elections to the Shadow Authority, and then May 28 vesting day, which is when the new authority will be stood up. So a very short time period. I've just put up a slide about managing the transition, because the latest letters from government, which talked about that timetable and also the moratorium coming in place, circulated it to SMT. And the feedback from SMT and their teams was that, wow, this is now looking real. And so I think as a council, we now need to start stepping up some of the communications with staff and with you as members, and start thinking about that transition. Now we know that, you know, there's still scope for local government reorganisation to not happen at all. Government haven't said that they will definitely choose one of the options that are coming forward. They have said that, you know, an option, if any, will go forward, but there's still scope for it not to happen or to be delayed. But it's now time, I think, to start preparing the organisation for the fact that a big change is underway. So we're looking at stepping up the written communications with staff. I think members have been signed up to the blogs that I put out about local government reorganisation. We'll keep doing those ones. We're going to put a page on the intranet, which will go through all the latest information. We'll keep that up to date. I'm starting regular meetings with Unison to ensure that they're kept informed and stay with us during the process. And we've got some special staff briefings starting to be set up as well. But I think it's also important to start working with you as members. So we're looking at doing a workshop perhaps in September, hopefully facilitated by the LGA, to start thinking about how you transition the authority, start thinking about priorities during this transitional period, and the strategy going forward as well. That is the presentation, Chair. As I said, clearly KPMG's work clearly shows that it's not, it does have some merit, and the recommendation and the resolution that we've been working to from previously is presumably still current. In other words, we will support the 145, but still keep looking at the Northern Devon option. But happy to take any questions, Chair.
If we can start with questions for Ken on the presentation and where we're up to now, before we move on to any discussion about next steps. So, Councillor Warden.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want me to stand or? Yeah. I was just going to ask about the timetable that you had at the end there. You mentioned that the shadow authority, if you like, will have elections in May 2027. So presumably, if everything goes ahead, this council will still be in operation until May 2028. Okay, I was just clarifying that in my mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the moratorium that I talked about, once the shadow authority is in place, then they will have a role in taking some of those decisions or running some of those decisions through the shadow authority.
Thank you.
Councillor Beaman, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, Ken, what you mentioned, figures are starting to come through and the data showing, because I think that bit's the crucial bit, isn't it? Is, suddenly that, I mean, I'm sure everybody loves the idea of that Northern model, but that leaves a whole load of roads and school transport and social care and children's services to run. When will we know the real figures of the cost of it?
There was a process or a contract that was let across the country for a firm of consultants called Newton to start analysing some of that upper tier data around children's services, highways, adult services, etc. They, in relation to Devon, the data coming from our upper tier authorities, so Torbay, Plymouth and County, has gone to Newton now, and I'm told is back from Newton today, and will be put into the data hub. I haven't checked that yet. I know there's a meeting tomorrow morning with County Council to go through that data. I'm not in tomorrow or Friday, but Sarah Higgins is going to go to that meeting, and she's heavily involved in the data group anyway, just to start looking at that data. The view from KPMG is that the lack of that data is not fatal, because an awful lot of that data can be gleaned from some of the public indices and the public information. But obviously it would be useful to know where the demand for children's services or adult services is most felt. We know that in North Devon, for instance, there are a high number of children in care, but how that compares to other parts of the county, I don't know yet. So that's where the usefulness of the Newton data will come in.
Councillor Milton.
Councillor Peterman's asked most of what I was going to. Just a question, the data that's become available, does that give you sufficient time, do you feel, for it to be analysed at a level whereby a meaningful decision will be able to be made in time?
Well, I mean, in other areas of the country, that data has become available much earlier in the process. And for one reason or another, it hasn't in this area. But subject to us getting that data now, yes, there is still time to analyse it and feed it into the process. There's still an awful lot of work to be done on any model going forward. The 145 model is obviously advancing, but there's still a huge amount of work to be undertaken on that. The report that I prepared sets out the costs so far to date in relation to the work on this, and quite clearly there's a financial benefit in working in collaboration with a number of other authorities, because so far we've spent, I think it's about £21,000 on the 145 model, but probably twice that on the Northern Devon model getting it to this stage. An awful lot of that, an awful lot of the money being spent on the 145 work will be on analysing the data and plugging that into the model. But yes, there's still time to do it, definitely.
Yeah. I just want to say a few points really. I want to say a big thank you first of all to Ken, because since it seems a long time ago, since last October when this started, and we've both been in quite a lot of meetings where we seem to go around in circles and not really get much done at the end, but we're now in the final stretch. I also want to just introduce and say welcome to Councillor Josh Rutty as well, because I think this is his first full council meeting. Unfortunately, he's away on holidays, but he is online. So welcome, Councillor Josh Rutty. I'm going to say a few words, and before I preface that really with what I will come back to at the end. It's a proposal which I hope we can accept, and the proposal after discussion, because I'll just say a few words, it's important we get as many views as possible, but it would be this. Unfortunately, I can't write it down anywhere, but I'll say it slowly. So propose the following. Number one, continue to work collaboratively on the 145 model. 2, continue to explore options for a Northern Devon focused unitary. And 3, delegate power to the Chief Executive to support the above, subject to prior consultation with myself as leader. You won't take all that in, I'll come back to it. But just a few points. I don't intend to go back through all the history of this. We are where we are, and we need to continue working on this until our submission in late November. So where are we? I think we can all agree that for whatever option the government goes for, it will be their decision. We need to emphasise the importance of Northern Devon. That is why we started alongside Torry to work on preparing the place story for Northern Devon, which will reflect the community characteristics and economic opportunities in the Northern Devon area. I apologise, I've been to dentist this afternoon, so I'm lisping a little bit. This place story will be invaluable in ensuring Northern Devon is able to speak with one voice and argue the case for as many services and hubs in the new unitary, whatever that is, to be based in Northern Devon. Work is ongoing with the 145, as said, shared with the 8 districts that signed up to this initially. It's worth pointing out, unfortunately, as far as any Northern Devon proposal, there's 2, that no other district councils, apart from Torridge, supported us in this. And that's worth bearing in mind. In fact, I received an email today off Ken James, who's the leader of Torridge, as you know. He intends now to just pursue the 145 option. And he'll be presenting this to his other group leaders on Friday morning. He doesn't see any worth in pursuing a Northern Devon option as such. I think, though, there's some value in keeping our options open, which is what the recommendation that I put forward would do. There's certainly no overall agreement across Devon. That's been a real problem. The government wanted us to come up with a united option. That's not going to happen. And so to that end, we are still in a state of flux. As Ken explained, we've had Exeter Plus, Plymouth Plus, and I think there'll be very similar things with the blob of the rest of Devon in the middle. Possibly be if that group gets the go ahead, I can't say it will, but we've got a Labour controlled leader in Plymouth, we've got a Labour controlled leader in Exeter, and we've got a Labour government, so you can do your own conclusions for that one. But if it's left with that blob in the middle, that could possibly be divided up into two. This is what I'm saying about keeping the Northern Devon option open. We could still talk with Exeter and Plymouth, and maybe there is some room there. But that's where we are at, and I wouldn't want us to just say, let's just go for the 145, because that will be limiting our options perhaps, but we haven't got much time. I appreciate that. And therefore, you know, my view is that we delegate that authority to Chief Executive Ken Miles, along with myself, to investigate that further. The crux will come on the money side. Can't go into statistics on how much it will be, but it's an awful lot, and James has already said to me today that Torridge will be putting money into that. And you know, therefore we've got to consider that. That's got to be option. But we're not cutting the northern option off. It's still there. But I welcome any contributions. I'll just repeat again what I said at the start. So on top of it replaces the recommendation, which I think the recommendation is to note what Ken says and then look at further steps. It's just solidifying those further steps into one, continue to work collaboratively with others on the 145 model. 2, continue to explore options for Northern Devon focused unitary. And 3, delegate power to Chief Executive to support the above, i.e. 1 and 2, subject to prior consultation with the leader. That's what I propose at the end of our discussions.
Councillor Ricky Knight, had you? Yes.
It was a follow-up question for Councillor Warden, actually, for clarity from my point of view. And I know clarification will come in time. We have a little bit of time, but our terms of office come to a conclusion in the end of May 27. And I'm still not clear. Therefore, do we seek re-election or do we remain as a North Devon District Council until the following May? And then what do councillors with aspirations do then? Do they apply for a new position? Not me, don't worry about that, but anyway, that's it. I'm not clear.
As I understand it, what government's saying is that there will be district elections in May 27. Obviously, not for a very short, for a very short term. But that may change. I mean, don't forget when we started this process, there was a postponement of the county elections in some areas. So I don't know, but at the moment they're saying district elections will still go ahead. For 1 year.
Councillor Bushell, please.
I'll try and stand, but I have a dodgy leg at the moment. I thank the leader for welcoming contribution, but that seems a little bit backward and doesn't agree with his points saying that he and our chief exec should now just do what they'd like and let's not involve members. So there's no way I can support that section. I think that, as Ken has said here, he welcomes contribution from members. And we are, after all, a democracy. So to say that the leader and the chief exec are the only people who are going to be feeding in, which is what was in his motion, then I do also understand that we are being pushed away from a committee structure back to the old regime, which didn't involve people as much. But I think the leader should involve us all. We all have a point to make in this room, and we all turn up to the meetings. I shall carry on with what I was actually going to say, because I didn't have him down as the sort of authoritarian leader of the council. I thought he was, you know, more open than that. But recently, in the recent years, we have seen that North Devon's economy is evolving, and we're currently in a transitional phase where top talent are seeking out companies that allow them to live in North Devon. This is, you know, medical fields, surgeons, tech, and civil servants who are either working remotely the majority of the time and living here, or they're finding for big urban environments where they don't want to live, but they do want to work, they do want to get the wage. But we've got others who are reevaluating their work-life balance, and they're finding companies locally who want them to work for them, and I'm sure that they're taking some level of different remuneration for this. But if we've got top people in medical areas wanting to move to North Devon, we can't say we depend on Exeter, because in the past, everyone's moved to Exeter for the bigger wages. Now they're thinking, you know what? I want to live my life as much as I want to work and end up with remuneration, which is suitable. And Northern Devon is becoming the place where people want to go. So I don't think that in any way we should discount working towards model 1 or 2 as well. And I agree with the leader that we do pursue the 145 alongside those models. I'm hoping that with the correct data, we can actually work out which is best for our people. But I'm glad that the leader is supporting all 3 options. I'm not glad that he wants delegated powers to be given to the chief exec. So he and the chief exec solely can do what they'd like. I think that we all need to feed in, and it would be a bit draconian to suddenly be giving out delegated powers. And we know that I've spoken against giving big picture things which need input being moved over to delegated powers. And I still feel that, you know, we're proud to be a democracy in this country. And I think certainly with the way that central government is going, we're going to have to fight for our voices to keep the government representing the people. I think we need to do exactly the same for our people who elected us, to make sure they get the best deal out of unitary, the unitary authority. Thank you.
Sorry, can I, Councillor Prowse, are you happy for Councillor Clayton to just clarify a point?
Yeah. I understand your concern, Councillor Bushell, but it's not the intention of the chief executive and myself will go away and make decisions away from everybody else. It is to give us the power to further investigate, particularly the northern option, with, for example, the Exeter Authority and the chief executive and leader there, to see if there's any sort of coming together of minds with them. Of course, it will come back to members here. We will not make any decision as far as 145 or any of the 2 northern options. It will all be coming back to us here. It is just giving us that ability to go away and perhaps not restrict ourselves to the 145 and talk to others, which you'd be very welcome to come along to as well if you wanted to, Councillor Bushell. But that this is not, do not get this idea that it's Ken and myself going away and making decisions. Nothing could be honestly further from the truth. And this thing about, it's not really relevant here, but this moving away from the committee structure. I asked this question at the last full council meeting. I don't know where this is coming from, what the grapevine in the independent group is, but can I categorically again say there are no plans or intentions to move away from the committee structure? Hopefully that'll be the end of it, because I don't know where it's come from.
Can I just clarify that point, please, about the committee structure? The government have actually stated that they wish for local authorities to move away from the committee structure and move into not the current council.
We might have to
May I come back to those things?
Can I?
I just want to encourage Councillor Clayton then to change his wording so it does involve the entire council, and we don't need delegated powers. We can quickly make a meeting like we have done tonight to discuss these things.
Not for every single one week, but that's up to the council to decide.
Councillor Prowse.
Chair, first of all, I just want to refer to the 145 scheme, which was originally sort of thought up or dreamed up and agreed before the county elections and before Plymouth and Exeter came out with their plans. So I think we've got to be quick on our feet here. And I think that's why many of us are worried about just going on with 145. There are things about representation and, you know, electoral deficit, the bigger the authorities. And those are things that we are very concerned about. And that economic pull of Exeter dominating a new unity is something that still worries me greatly. I was going to move a proposal that actually pushed more on the Northern Devon options, and particularly on the first option that Ken put up there, the 4 northern districts. But I think from what the leader said, I'm happy that we won't go forward with all those proposals. But I'd like just to add a couple of paragraphs I've got written down here, if you would agree them, that talks about the making sure about the North Devon economy. I think we need to beef up a bit more, because just to have a motion that talks about 145 and the other, it needs to actually have some words around it. Ken was a bit critical of the wordy resolution from last time, but I've got a few paragraphs that I think perhaps might help. So the things like the council reaffirms its commitment to local government being delivered as close as possible to the communities it serves. And I think the other thing is that we ought to be clear that we reject a proposal for a singular unitary for Devon, either with or without Plymouth. I think that should be in it, because I'm really worried what the county council are up to now. I went to the meeting when David, the leader, couldn't go with the other districts in the 5, and it was very interesting to see that the deputy leader from East Devon's there, because their leader is now obviously looking at other options. South Hams are all over the place now, so we just don't know what the county could even come up with a complete unity, including Plymouth, couldn't they? So I just think I want to beef up some of those things and add those sort of clauses to it if the leader would accept them, Chair.
Can I have Councillor Lane next, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, Chairman, it's fair to say, I think whatever happens is it's going to be on a limb, regardless whatever happens, because even College, like you said tonight, is trying to work together, but it don't seem like we want to work together. And the Exeter, I don't know where the Exeter job, or even the Model 3 you talked about. I think we're stuck. Being quite honest with you, none of the authorities seem to know where they're actually going at this stage. But I actually do support our chief exec in his proposal going forward. I think that's the right way to go forward, because that's the fact he's trying to get us into a good position. I would support the chief exec. Actually, that's the way forward, as far as I'm concerned. I think we actually, I think Northern Devon or North Devon, we've got a problem. Wherever we go, we've got a problem because we're stuck in this 145. Well, you know, us can talk about Exeter, but they don't want us to.
Councillor Nelson.
Try not to repeat what's been said. I'll do my best anyway. I'm a firm believer in local identity, and the biggest challenge I'm seeing here is local identity. And it's looking increasingly like the 145 model, to me, is ultimately going to be a sellout of North Devon's local identity, I regret to say.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very reluctant to support that particular one as our primary option, I'm afraid, because I think we should stand up for ourselves first and make sure our own identity is right at the top of any proposal that we put forward. I'm not seeing the level of understanding and inclusivity from those other people down on the southern end of the 145 model towards us. They're kind of pursuing their own agenda, and that feeling that we'll be tagged on the edge sometime if it suits. I'm not particularly happy with that. I think we should focus considerably more primarily on a Northern Devon or a Greater Northern Devon area and see where that fits then with the models that come. After all, it's highly likely that whatever we come up with, the data will be used and what we put forward from this council by government to determine what that authority will actually be, not what we want. But at least if nothing else, I'd like to think that we went down fighting for North Devon properly, not roll over and let it happen.
I just bring Councillor Jones in.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree with Councillor Milton anymore. I find it deeply disappointing that our friends in Torwich are not necessarily going to support the Northern Devon option. And it's sad if they have lost hope. Yeah, I agree that we are about to lose our identity. Not only are we about to lose our identity, we're also going to lose the ability to really serve the community. I think it's a really important point that Councillor Milton mentioned, that why are we supporting the 145 option? We're supporting it because it's an option. We're not actually representing our communities at this point. We're just following along. What really represents our communities would be staying as we are. What we have currently works. We know that we can't keep that, but why do we have to just follow along and say we're going to support the 145? I think that we should put our primary focus onto a Northern Devon option, and I think that that should absolutely be a priority. As it stands, we're able to really effectively serve our communities, and as councillors, we know our areas really, really well, and so do our officers. And I think it's really important that we do as much as we can to defend and protect that. And by pursuing this option, even if we may not be able to achieve it, we will at least be able to outline the benefits, which might give us a better representation if we are pushed into another deal, which I think currently we don't really have much input in. Thanks.
Can I just bring Councillor Clayton back in to answer some of the points?
Yeah,
that have been made?
Going back to my suggestion, let's be clear, this is not the final thing. This is just saying we're going to carry on with the 145. We're going to carry on looking at the Northern option. We're going to basically talk to others as well, such as Exeter, possibly Plymouth, to see where we can go. It is recognising the fact that, you know, Torwich, and it's not all Torwich, Councillor Jones. This is from Councillor Ken James, leader. He's going to put it to his group leaders on Friday. So of course that might possibly change, but he seems quite strongly of that opinion now. So I certainly don't agree with prioritising the Northern option, because I think we should continue looking at that. And I think we should also continue looking at 145, but time is running out. And I actually think it doesn't need an amendment. I understand what you're saying about beefing it up a bit, but this is just also the whole thing. It is just for us to continue. Councillor Prowse, in what we're doing, it's you know, we could go on at length about all the different aspects of the Northern bit. I think that's where I think that's where the joint working with Torwich will be very beneficial, whatever unitary we come up with, in trying to push that Northern distinctiveness and characteristics that Councillor Milton talked about into your authority. You know, if we're looking for clouds and silver linings and things, let's say, for example, that we do get what Exeter and Plymouth are advocating, and we have left it this splurge in the middle that goes from the north down to the south, including Torquay. Then we've got to use that to push for things like the hubs and officers working from Barnstaple as a centre. So, you know, it won't be wasted time, that, and wasted money. But, you know, I mean, I'll listen to amendments, but I think what I've put down there gives Ken and myself the ability to talk to us.
Gives you power.
Please, could we not have people talk over others?
You're mistaken me there.
Could I just ask Ken to come in, please? Yeah.
I just want to stress the importance of that piece of work around the place story. And perhaps I didn't stress it enough, is that the results of that piece of work, as I said, will reflect our local communities, reflect the economic opportunities, and reflect the things that Councillor Busher was talking about, you know, about job opportunities for the kids, etc. And that piece of work, we want to plug into whatever model of local government reorganisation happens. I think it was Councillor Jones said that, you know, we're not having much influence in the 145. With the greatest respect to Councillor Jones, that is wrong. We are having influence with the 145. I've been to a workshop today for most of the day. with officers, admittedly, with chief execs. And they totally get the fact that the 145 model has to reflect the identity of Northern Devon. And they know about the work that we're undertaking with the place story, and that will be plugged into the 145. I've also had conversations with other authorities that might be coming forward with proposals, again, stressing the importance of the Northern Devon identity as part of those proposals. So we are working on that. We are trying to exert influence on that particular point. Just in relation to the delegated powers point, I mean, I'm certainly not going to be taking any decisions relating to this. The final decision will be down to you as members in November.
Yeah.
You will have the 145, if members continue with the 145, you will have the 145 option in front of you as a full proposal, and you'll be able to see the full workings out, if you like. I can't present that to you now because it's not been done yet. But when you get to November, you will have that. You will have the other options, and you'll be able to take a decision on it. It will not be my decision, I stress, but there is an awful lot of day-to-day work that is being undertaken. Virtually every day I'm at 3 different meetings about local government reorganisation. And consultants are looking for steers on different things. There's negotiations taking place. And to suggest that we can run that through full council each time would be completely wrong. We can't do it. Things are moving at such a pace. And we only have a couple of months now in which to get the proposals together in a fit state to put in front of all the members across Devon as a whole. As I see it, the recommendation being put forward continues where we are now. We will continue to work on the 145. We'll continue to develop those Northern Devon options. But there will be difficulties in developing a Northern Devon option, not least of which doing that on our own is going to cost an awful lot of money. I would estimate that the cost would be probably upwards of £150,000 by the time we've employed consultants to do that. So there probably needs to be a conversation outside of this room about how we develop that and what we do. As Councillor Claydon said, there may well be conversation to be had with other authorities. But that's probably a separate conversation outside of this room, I guess. But I do want to stress, I will absolutely not be taking decisions on this. This is going to be down to you guys.
Trinos.
Well, there's been a variety of views expressed tonight, but one of the things that seems common throughout all of them is that we all want to preserve as much of the distinctiveness of the north of Devon compared to the south as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of a practical person. I'm just thinking what that means in practice. So in practical terms, each council in the affected area can only at the end of the day in November come up with one proposal. And between now and November isn't a very great deal of time when there's an awful lot of work to do. Time is extremely short. So in order for that work to take place, we need to have a particular geography to point at. One that, well, I think we all agree, needs to preserve as much of the distinctiveness of the north, the rural north, as possible. And perhaps one even that can be amended if we work more closely with other authorities that have come up with their own sort of let's expand type proposals. So I mean, it streams to me that it's the obvious thing to do is rather than just go down the old 145 thing that I remember at the time we were talking about. Well, look, everybody's saying that we've got to say something. Let's do it. Yeah, but it's now become over time more embedded in stone just through familiarity. Even though there's more than one option on those pictures we were looking at earlier. There's 145. So I think what we need to do is focus on the distinctiveness of the north and have a geography that focuses on that distinctiveness, like Model 1.
Yeah. Councillor Biederman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think we have no choice, really. I mean, I think, what we've got to keep in our head here is that this is the government doing to us what, we all hate. And I think that goes from us as councillors, the public. We've got an incredible staff, and I suspect every district's the same, but we we know got incredible staff that know the place, and we've got credible councillors that know the place. But the reality is, the government have come along, they want to do away with 2 tiers of local government to create 2 tiers of government a bit further away from where it is now. So the biggest hope I've heard all night is that they might change their mind. So that's the hope I'll take home tonight, because you know, like I say, the best way to keep that Northern Devon thing is to have a North Devon council. But I think we, you know, if it does press on, you know, I totally agree with what Matthew and Peter and Robin have said. But the reality is, we are now going to be delivering services that are incredibly expensive. You know, adult social care and children's services, 600 million, 300 million, you know, across Devon, the roads and the roads, you know, we'll be left with all those roads. We'll have to be getting children from all over the place to school. Of course, Exeter want to be greedy and selfish, whichever way you want to look at it. Of course, they want to keep their little cute area, you know, where they're only having to run around a little small space while they're bringing in millions and millions of business rates and stuff the rest of Devon. You know, if I was living in Exeter and if I was next to the city council, I'd be going down that route. So it will be a test of government, won't it? Whether they stick to the principles and making sure it's equitable. Because I think ultimately for me, when all this washes out, what we've got to be able to do is look after children that desperately need looking after. We need to be able to fix the roads, and we need to be able to look after elderly people. You know, and nobody will be worried about the distinctiveness of North Devon or South Devon or West Devon if we're not looking after people, educating people, caring about people. So I think that until we see these figures, you know, and really see these figures and crunch them, we're all stabbing in the dark. So I think, you know, we need to trust the leader and the chief executive. And we know David, we know Ken, they're not going to be keeping us quiet and silent from us. They're going to be feeding into us what's going on, what the figures are. And then, like I say, we're going to have to come back at some point and make a decision. But you know, at the end of the day, it's about people, isn't it?
I have Councillor Tops.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, kind of similarly to what Frank just said, really, but this entire reorganisation of local government, probably from the start, was going to become an exercise in kind of jockeying for position, and every single authority, every body involved in local government in the human sense and in the organisational sense is thinking about how are they going to be able to put their area in a position to get the best advantage they possibly can. And that's our job. That's what we're meant to be doing. Each area is going to want power. That is going to mean that power, ability, advantage, more money, less of an area to look after, less stuff to spend on roads, whatever it might be, that means they can do their job of looking after their area better. And ultimately, that does mean at the moment, lots of different areas, lots of different councils, they're all sort of quite opaque. We don't know exactly what everyone's going to propose. We don't know what's going to be suggested. And so it seems wise to me that sort of what the recommendation on the report, what Councillor Clayton, the leaders' proposal are, effectively is that we continue to gather data. We do look at the place story, we get that information, we continue to look at 145 with other bodies so that we're sharing that cost. And so we've got as much information as we can, because as we move into September, into October, probably early November, it will become clearer what other areas are putting forward, what it seems likely the government might go with, if we're thinking more Labour area in Plymouth and Exeter might get what they want. We need to be able to pivot at that point or manoeuvre as we get more information. We know what's going on. And so, you know, personally for me, it seems like we need to be in a position where in November we can put together a proposal that is going to sell North Devon as a place and as our ability to deliver services to MHLGC. And so it seems, you know, when the picture gets clearer, it seems to me perfectly clear that we should probably continue to explore our options as the recommendation and as the proposal both suggest.
Thank you. I have Councillor Bushell next.
Thank you, and I really respect what Councillor Tops has said. It's not often we agree. I think people have been in council, but all but the exclusion of the other group leaders, I do think that it is disingenuous, and I think that Councillor Clayton was a little bit dismissive and rude towards our group leader, and he also brought politics into things by blaming my views. My views as the independent councillors, because I'm a councillor fighting for my people. And I take Ken's reassurances that he's not going to make decisions. But I remember last time we were asking for the chief exec to have delegated powers, he said, all be minded that if council vote about something today, if I have the delegated powers he was asking for back then, which are slightly different, they're fenced in a lot better this time. He said, I could change my mind and potentially could go in the opposite direction to what councillors have voted for. And I remember that very clearly, but that was being asked for full delegated powers for everything in council off the back of COVID. I wonder whether Councillor Clayton, as a leader, might want to include the other group leaders in the discussions. So he amends what he's saying, that Ken will work with him and with all the other group leaders, and it won't just be the leader and the chief exec in a room funneling. What they want.
Can I just say,
I would like him, I'd like to.
I think you are going completely off
No,
topic.
I'm asking that.
Can I ask you to?
And the other leaders are involved in the conversations.
There's more people who want to speak before the end of the
Just a
meeting.
point of order, Chair, on that. I mean, if we suddenly turn up to these discussions because you've got 4, 5, 6 councillors, and then every other councillor wants 4, 5, 6, you just wouldn't be able to do it.
No, it would be completely, I would agree with that.
We've got a
Councillor.
chief executive
Yeah.
to bring forward the best of the.
Okay, if we can move on, Councillor Lovering would like to speak.
Just to say, I work for an organisation that has recently amalgamated with a bigger organisation. One good thing that has come out of that, and Councillor Bush was saying about people going to bigger cities for bigger wages.
No, coming here. They're coming here
They're
now.
coming here because it is illegal to pay a consultant in the big city more than it is in North Devon, because we're now one big trust. We both belong to the same trust. Okay, they have taken over our internet service and they've taken over our payroll office, etc. But if this happens, and it's going to, I know, would it mean that basically a secretary from North Devon District Council would get paid now exactly the same as a secretary from Torwich District Council, which is a good thing? I mean, okay, this sounds like a bad thing, but one thing the two organisations, North District and Exeter, have done is they've made sure that all people are treated fairly among wages that work for the same organisation, that work for the same job. And this will do exactly the same. So you're not going to have somebody working for District Council in Torwich on £15 an hour and somebody working as the secretary in North Devon District Council for £20 an hour. Which is a good thing.
Councillor Whitehead, do you want to speak?
I would like to say that our biggest asset in North Devon is Barnstaple.
Yes.
With the growth of Barnstaple, the businesses, the people that want to be here, and I think this is what we should be pushing. And the North Coast, and I believe that we should be working with Torwich, and I hope that we're going to be able to do that, and they provide all the information that we need. And I think we should focus on the North Coast with Barnstaple as the centre of excellence, because it is a centre of excellence, because it's growing. We've got more housing coming in, we've got more businesses coming in, and Barnstaple is just so important. It's important to all of us, isn't it? I think you will agree. And I think we should be pushing the North Devon as hard as we possibly can.
Can I please remind councillors not to talk when other people are talking, please?
Could I just check? I just wanted to mention a couple of things that came up last night at the workshop that we haven't referred to yet, in the work with KPMG. But they did a lot of work in Cumbria, and they were reporting back last night that this model that the government have been talking about in terms of size is not necessarily right, and that the evidence is that some of the smaller unitaries that they work with are the more efficient ones. And I think that's important to say, because I think we've been told all the way along that we've got to get this huge size. The other thing is that last night there were 2 other members from Torwich at that meeting, and they had completely opposite views. They were actually very supportive of the debate that we've had tonight here about the distinctiveness of the North and continuing looking at that option. So let's hope that common sense will pull through.
So, Councillor Milton.
Just
Just a question really, following on Ken's comments around cost and so on of developing these proposals. There's a bit of a concern of mine at the moment, increasing concern, that the direction of travel that we choose is likely to be driven by the cost of developing the proposal. And I feel that I'm quite uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
I think it's a relatively small price, whatever. We've got to determine on the validity of each proposal, not on the cost of what it will be to draw it up.
Agreed, yeah.
You know,
Can I bring Councillor Wilson in first and then?
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Milton's point. Yeah, I've been waiting a long time to speak, so my thoughts have been echoed by everybody else. But I do believe in the distinctiveness of the North. I do think we need to keep neighbourhood democracy alive, and I'm still not sure quite how that's going to work with this whole reorganisation. I have to push away my cynicism with a lot of it, but we've got to keep local democracy alive. I think a lot about parish councils and town councils and how they're going to manage and how we can support as councillors the processes that they're going through. But yeah, the distinctiveness of the North is very important to me. I'm feeling quite disappointed and deflated by hearing about Torridge and also just reading about how, you know, in Ken's report, how other, as we've said before, other districts are all looking to themselves. And, you know, I hope that in North Devon, we're not doing that. We're trying to look to the whole of the North. We're thinking about our own people. And I just really, I'm trying to remain optimistic and finding it a little bit difficult. I really think the placemaking story idea is a really good one. Whatever happens, it will serve a good purpose. So yeah, I welcome this opportunity to have this open discussion tonight. For me, it's really hard to make an informed decision when we still don't have all the information. But I do very much want to say that I'm worried about the 145 model a little bit, and that we should pursue the Northern Devon model as much as we can.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I bring Councillor Clayton back in, can I bring Ken back?
I was going to say, I know people are concerned about different models. Some people will be concerned about pursuing a Northern Devon option. Some people will be concerned about the 145 model. And those are the models that are on the table at the moment. There will be other models that come forward from other councils. So you will have the opportunity in November to choose which model you want to go with. And it may be, I don't know, that you choose to go with a single unitary if that comes forward, accepting that, you know, there will be some objection, I'm sure. But all I'm saying is there will be a range of options that are being presented and going in as proposals. I'm not asking you to take a decision one way or another on any of the models tonight, because you do not have the detail in front of you. You don't have very much detail about any Northern Devon options. You've only got what KPMG have looked at, and which is, you know, a very high level summary at the moment. You certainly don't have the detail around the 145 because that's still being worked on. You just don't have that information. So I don't think anybody is suggesting that we kick out any of the options at the moment. What's being suggested, I think, is that we continue pretty much as we were, looking at the 145 model, but also looking at Northern Devon options. As I said, I think there's probably scope for a conversation outside of this formal setting about how we move forward with a Northern Devon option in terms of costs and, you know, picking up on what Councillor Clayton has said around Torridge and whether there's going to be support, etc. I think we need to have a conversation about that, but that's probably a conversation that we can have informally, I think, outside of this meeting. And picking up on the concerns about member involvement, I will involve as many members as I can. We will do so. And if if members want more informal sessions, for instance, workshops, whatever it might be, briefings, then we can add that in. Going back to the point I made about the transition, we've got to keep members on board. We've got to keep you informed of what's happening, because you are the ones that will be answering questions from your public. And as we go forward in this process, there is going to be more publicity, more press releases, etc. And there may well be more concerns from parish councils, as you say, Councillor Wilson, and from the public. So keeping you informed and keeping you part of the process is vital. There are concerns, quite rightly, around member representation. And those are concerns that are felt by not just you as a district council, but every other district council across Devon. They're all having those same conversations, especially the rural authorities, where they are likely to see a reduced number of councillors in any local government reorganisation model that comes forward. They've all got those concerns. And believe me, that is one of the main areas of work on the 145, and it'll be the main area of work on any other model coming forward. So once you see that model, once you see the work that's been done on those models, then you can see what you can make an assessment as to whether it adequately addresses that issue. But you don't have that in front of you at the moment. But to provide you with reassurance, it is a conversation that's taking place right across the county, and exactly the same with community representation as well, and getting that local flavour in. Everybody wants to do that. But as I said, not looking to pick any particular model out at this stage. I don't think we should do. I think we should be keeping our options open until you see what those options actually look like properly.
If I can bring in Councillor Clayton, and then is it right for me to say something?
Yeah, it's just.
Then I want to say something.
Thanks, Jane. Just a couple of points. First, on the democracy aspect of all this. One of the first things that I agreed to last October was to set up the whole party committee to look into the whole issue of local government reorganisation, and there was 2 from each grouping there. Perhaps not as regular as we could have done, but we did meet, and we were the only district authority, I believe, that did that. So I won't take any lessons in democracy, and I'm afraid from you, Councillor Bishop. It has been transparent, and we might not have got everything right, but we've certainly been as open as transparent as I possibly can be on this, and I know certainly Ken has been that. Councillor Milton quite rightly refers to the elephant in the room, and I perhaps disagree with him, because the elephant in the room is the financing of this. And I know there are others who agree with you that money should not be a stumbling block to a full appraisal of a northern option. I do disagree with you, which Ken referred to I think it's 21,500 we've spent so far on the 145. Is that right? Why is it 21,500? It's because we've shared with 7 other districts. And believe me, I wish we weren't having to spend any money on consultants. I think the government should be supplying this. This is their doing, and they should be supplying the money, but they haven't done. And it's left to all the districts and the county and Torbay and Plymouth to then finance their own thing, which then the government will decide. So we'll spend all this money. A lot of districts will have wasted money in the end because it won't go through. Anecdotal evidence. I met with a hotelier from Ilfracombe last week with June and a couple of officers who wants to get money from us to get some kind of officer to encourage people to come to Ilfracombe and to do as much work as possible to get it working as a tourism. And I said, the money's tight. The money's not there. We will do what we can, and we've got some plan in place. We're working with Ilfracombe Town Council to try and get that. Recently, Ricky put forward to get more electrification of vehicles. £150,000. We said no because we can't afford it. This is the real politics of it, and where the priorities are. And to me, and this is where I disagree with you, because I think there have to be limits on the financing of this, and we've got to be careful. There are other ways we can approach it, perhaps with, as I said, Exeter and with Plymouth, if they're a bit more welcoming on a northern proposal, they might help finance something. But that's something where we need the powers, the delegated powers to approach them. That's a too much because there's public, obviously. But we do need to seriously think about the financial side of it. And I know that others share my opinion on that. I do recognise that some in here think we should spend it takes to promote this Northern Devon thing, even though we're the only authority perhaps that are supporting and advocating that. So please give some serious thoughts. And I certainly wasn't being rude to Councillor Prowse. I apologise if it came across as being rude to you because I haven't actually heard the full amendment, but I wasn't saying no. I was just saying I think as it stands at the moment, Councillor Prowse, it is sufficient to go ahead with both. It doesn't mean, but I'm willing to listen to.
Can I just say that I think the leaders open another debate now because my view is the importance. This is the most important thing that's happened to North Devon since 1970, 72, 73 with the Loudsbury organisation. And so for me, getting the decision right for the people of North Devon, it costs, £1 a head for the people of North Devon or £2 a head for the people of North Devon. I think it's worth spending the money. So I just think we owe it to the people of North Devon to do that bit of work. But we can have that debate after tonight, can't we, David? All I would say, my amendment was actually really just strengthening up the work, the priority that many of us feel should be on the Northern Devon option.
Yeah.
And it's not just the independent group, David. Half your group agree with us. That's the reality of it. Because that's the option we would like to pursue, and we feel is best for North Devon. You're obviously being practical, David. I understand that you've been working with other districts. So, as a compromise, we're quite happy. I think we can say that we'll go along with your proposition, but we will be pushing that the work is carried out at a pretty high level on the Northern Devon option. And my fingers are crossed that in the end, Torridge will see that it makes sense to come and join with us and work. I think they will. So with that, I shan't move the whole amendment, but the wording is just important to say about we're not going to go with unitary Devon. I think we ought to be saying that tonight. We will not support that and we'll fight it. And the other bits, we'll wait for another day because I don't think we can wait till November to make that final decision. We'll have to meet before the final date, won't we? So, we'll have other chances to sort of stiffen up the wording and look at where we stand. But I think our position is quite clear. When I say ours, it's not a group thing. It's most North Devonians feel like it pretty strongly. If you're born and brought up in North Devon, you don't want to see all those jobs go from Barnstable to Exeter. We've had enough of that over the years. So we want to hang on to what we've got and we want to make Barnstable Bideford axis grow. And it's not just about it is about Barnstable Bideford axis. But anyway, so for the moment, we'll relax a bit, but we still feel very strongly that we should put that in as the priority option.
I just wanted to ask if make a suggestion about a slight change to your wording, Councillor Clayton, which is that delegated powers are given to yourself and Ken Miles in order to pursue conversations with other councils. That just clarifies that that's what it's for, and it's not to make decisions on what's happening completely. That's
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to second that.
Can I just come back? Because I told you I'd have to read this again. 1, continue to work collaboratively on the 145 model. 2, continue to explore options for a Northern Devon caucus unitary and delegate powers of chief exec to support the above. In other words, to continue the work we're already doing, subject to prior consultation with the leader. It basically embraces what you just said, which is to talk to the leaders, but also anything else that might come up.
Would you take on board Councillor Prowse's rejection of a unitary?
By all means, we can do that because I think we all agree with that. You're talking.
I'm really worried that the county will come forward with that.
You're talking about the single unitary. I mean, remember, this is just about trying to frame what we want rather than what we don't want. But I'm happy to take that on board.
If we could actually have some words then. So if you're happy to put your words in plus a single line saying we do not support a single unitary authority for Devon.
I'm happy with that.
Well, I said, the council rejects any proposal of a single unitary authority covering the whole of Devon with or without Plymouth. Such a arrangement would be remote and unresponsive to local needs.
Yeah, so.
Sorry, Chair.
I'm sorry, we are absolutely running out of time. So Councillor Jones, can you be very quick, please?
Yeah, just on terminology, I'm just not happy with the use of explore options. It's not what we've all agreed to. There's a difference in terminology in the two options. I think we've all agreed we want to go down that option. We want to have a real look at that option. So I think I'm just not entirely comfortable with the use of language.
I think we're actually getting a little bit pedantic now. I think explore options is perfectly acceptable because we've got, for a start, we've got 2 Northern Devon options.
Yeah.
So it's whichever one. It's not. It's we've got 3 options we're looking at, not just one, not just 2. Model, yeah, we've got model 1, model 2, and the 145. Councillor York, I think it would be very straight.
Again, I think we're sort of nitpicking a little bit. The very fact that the motion or the proposal says 1, 2, 3 options negates the whole county-wide option anyway. We're not looking at that option. So we're rejecting it by the very nature of looking at those specific ones. So why do we need the amendment? I don't understand.
Could I just answer that?
Yeah.
It's really important that we send the message that we definitely don't want a unitary for the whole of Devon.
Yeah.
It's really important that that is included. I fully support what Malcolm has said. That should be added, but let's leave it at that because otherwise we'll just go on.
Right, can we now say, right, can we go to the amendment, which is to include the line from Councillor Prowse about not.
Didn't the leader include it?
Oh, you happy to include that?
Accepted.
You accepted that. Right, in that case, if we.
You made a proposal as well for clarity, which I seconded. Is that going as a motion or has that been accepted by the leader?
That's been accepted by the leader as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Can you possibly say what you propose and they can, because I think they're really.
What's being proposed is the motion as read out by Councillor Clayton, which was to effectively pursue 145, pursue the Northern Devon options, and then delegated powers to myself in consultation with the leader to progress that work. And then adding in decisions, and then adding in the provision that Councillor Price put forward, which is that we reject a single unitary option, whether that includes Plymouth or otherwise. Councillor Chair raised an issue regarding that delegated power and suggested that it be constrained to just having conversations with other authorities. But the reality is the discussions that are ongoing at the moment are much wider than just having a conversation with other authorities. We're having conversations with other authorities, but we're having conversations with consultants and also other stakeholders as well, because part of this process will be going out and understanding what, I don't know, the ICB or university, the colleges feel about these proposals. So that's the work that we're talking about. There will be no decision making undertaken by myself. And what I've said is that, perhaps as a group leaders, we can have a discussion next time we meet about how we sit down with members informally and keep you informed. The final point about the Councillor Price raised about the final decision, I think the authorities across Devon are trying to coordinate the final decision making, which will probably be in the last week in November. But there's absolutely nothing to stop us meeting in advance of that to keep members informed.
Just for clarification, this council will be making the ultimate decision. It won't be Ken or myself, it'll be the council. And we'll have meetings prior to that coming up. You can play with words on decision making. Ken and myself might have to decide whether to speak to somebody or whether to go and speak to Petroc or, you know, that, you know, that could be said to be a decision.
But you already do.
Give us
That's
that
not a
delegation.
decision, that you can have conversations, and that's normal behaviour.
We're mixing words. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
we've
gonna
got
have
the word
discussion
sorted.
around it on this.
Okay, councillors, we have the word sorted. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Hunt, thank you. Seconder, councillor Quinn. Okay, all those in favour?
I just count, just making sure it's absolutely everybody's hands up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've come to a really good decision.